I never thought I would be lying alone in a hospital bed for weeks, with multiple broken bones, wondering why my wife of 8 years never showed up even once. As a construction foreman, I knew the risks of the job, but I never imagined the scaffolding would collapse beneath me that Thursday morning. What hurt even more than my shattered leg and punctured lung was the phone call I finally made after 7 days of waiting. "You are not worth the gas money," Andres' Melissa said coldly. "Die fast, or heal quick." Then my stepson Jake took the phone and twisted the knife deeper. "We do not miss you. Before I tell you how I responded to this betrayal, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever been blindsided by someone you trusted completely." When I first met Melissa at my friend's backyard barbecue 6 years ago, she was struggling to make ends meet as a single mother. Her divorce from Jake's father had left her financially strained but fiercely independent. I was immediately drawn to her strength and the protective way she looked after 10-year-old Jake. With her wavy brown hair and warm smile, she seemed like someone who had weathered storms but remained kind. Our romance progressed quickly. We moved in together after just 5 months, and I proposed 5 months after that. Friends warned me about rushing, but I was confident in what we had built. The wedding was small but joyful, with Jake serving as the ring bearer, looking uncomfortable in his suit but trying his best for his mom. From the beginning, I approached my role as a stepfather with enthusiasm and patience. Jake was quiet around me initially, which I understood. His father had moved to another state for a job opportunity and rarely called, much less visited. I never tried to replace him, but I hoped to be a positive male figure in Jake's life. I suggested fishing trips, helped with his science projects, and attended his school events. Sometimes he seemed to warm up to me. Other times he retreated into cold silence. Financial struggles marked our early years together. Melissa worked as a receptionist at a dental office, but her income barely covered our basic needs. I took every overtime shift available at the construction company, often working 60-hour weeks to save for a home. My body would ache from the physical labor, but I would remind myself it was temporary sacrifice for our future. When I was promoted to foreman 3 years ago, the salary bump finally allowed us to put a down payment on a modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. The pride I felt signing those mortgage papers with only my name on them due to Melissa's poor credit history remains one of my life's highlights. I remember carrying Jake on my shoulders during the home tour, pointing out which room would be his, promising he could paint it whatever color he wanted. For a brief moment, he actually smiled at me. Life settled into a routine that I thought was building towards something good. I would wake before dawn, make coffee for Melissa, and myself walk Bruno, my loyal German Shepherd I had adopted as a puppy, before meeting Melissa, and head to work sites across the city. I was responsible for crew safety project timelines and coordinating with architects and engineers. The work was demanding but satisfying. Seeing structures rise from empty lots, knowing I had contributed to creating something lasting. Looking back now, I realized the distance between Melissa and me began growing about a year ago. Our conversations became practical rather than intimate. "Can you pick up milk on your way home?" replaced "I missed you today." Physical affection dwindled until it was rare and mechanical. I attributed it to normal relationship evolution and focused on working harder to provide the life I thought she wanted. Jake, now 16, had grown increasingly hostile toward me. The occasional moments of connection from his childhood had vanished entirely. He would roll his eyes when I spoke "leave rooms" when I entered, and respond to my questions with grunted monosyllables. I tried talking to Melissa about it, but she dismissed my concerns. "He is a teenager," she would say. "All teens are moody. Stop taking it personally." But there were moments when I caught her subtly undermining my relationship with Jake. She would make comments like, "That is just how Andres is. You know, he is not good with emotions," or, "Your real dad would probably handle this differently." Small things, but they accumulated over time. Our financial situation also raised red flags I chose to ignore. Despite our improved income, credit card bills kept mounting. When I questioned certain purchases, Melissa would become defensive, accusing me of controlling her. To keep the peace, I would apologize and work extra shifts to cover the growing expenses. Bruno remained my constant, offering the unconditional affection that was increasingly absent from my marriage. He would greet me enthusiastically no matter how late I returned home, resting his head on my lap as I unwound from exhausting days. The morning of the accident, Melissa and I had argued about a $3,000 credit card charge for designer clothes. She claimed they were necessary for a workplace function. When I pointed out that her receptionist position did not require such expensive attire, she accused me of belittling her career. "You think you are so much better than me with your big promotion," she snapped as I grabbed my hard hat. "That is not what I said," I replied, trying to stay calm. "I am just saying we need to stick to the budget if we want to fix the roof this year. Just go to work, Andres," she said, turning away. "I will handle the money my way, you handle it yours." Those were the last words she said to me before the accident. I left for work irritated but assuming we would resolve things that evening. I never imagined those casual, angry words would be the foundation for what came next. The accident happened just after 10 in the morning. We were 6 stories up on a new apartment complex, and I was inspecting recently installed supports when I heard a crack that still echoes in my nightmares. The temporary scaffolding had been improperly secured, a violation of safety protocols. I had flagged the previous week, but had been overruled on by upper management, pushing to meet deadlines. I had just enough time to yell a warning to my crew before the platform gave way beneath me. The fall seemed to happen in slow motion. I remember the blue sky spinning above me, the shouts fading as wind rushed past my ears, and the sickening certainty that this would not end well. I struck a pile of construction materials on the 3rd-floor ledge before tumbling the rest of the way down. The impact shattered my right leg in 3 places, broke 4 ribs, punctured my right lung, and left me with a concussion that kept me unconscious until I was already in the ambulance. My first clear memory after the fall is waking up in a hospital room with tubes and wires connecting me to various machines. The pain was overwhelming, despite whatever medication dripped from the IV bag. A nurse noticed I was conscious and quickly approached. "Mr. Reyes, can you hear me?" she asked, checking the monitors. "You have been in an accident. You are at Mercy General. Do you remember what happened?" I managed a weak nod, then whispered through parched lips. "My wife." The nurse paused. "We called your emergency contact when you were brought in yesterday. Would you like me to try again?" It did not register immediately what she was telling me. In my pain and confusion, I assumed Melissa must be in the waiting room or getting coffee. Surely she would come soon. I drifted back to sleep, believing that the next time I woke, she would be beside me. But she never came. Not that day, not the next. The only visitor who appeared was my sister Lucia, who had driven 3 hours from her home when the hospital called her as my secondary emergency contact. "Where is?" Melissa was the first question she asked, her face tight with concern and something else, something like anger. "She must be dealing with Jake," I said, making excuses even then. "Or maybe she cannot get off work. The dental office is always understaffed." Lucia's expression told me she did not believe this, but she did not press the issue. Instead, she stayed with me for hours, helping me eat the bland hospital food, adjusting my pillows, and updating me on her life to distract from the pain and the growing unease about my wife's absence. When Lucia left that evening, promising to return in a few days, the loneliness of the hospital room crushed down on me. The doctors had explained my injuries in detail, outlining a recovery that would take months. Surgery had repaired the internal bleeding and set my broken bones, but healing would be slow and painful. Days passed. Nurses came and went. Physical therapists began initial assessments of what would be possible once my body had stabilized. And still no Melissa, no Jake, not even a phone call. After a week of silence, I finally asked a nurse for my phone, which had been stored with my personal effects. With shaking hands, I dialed our home number. Melissa answered on the 4th ring. "Hello." Her voice sounded normal, as if nothing was wrong, as if her husband was not lying broken in a hospital bed. "Melissa, it is me," I said, emotion, making my voice unsteady. A pause. Then flatly, "What do you want?" The coldness of her tone shocked me. "I have been in the hospital for a week," I said. "There was an accident at work. Did they not call you?" "They called." Another pause. "I have been busy. Too busy to visit your husband in the hospital." I could not keep the hurt from my voice. "I could have died, Melissa. "But you did not," she replied, "and the hospital is 40 minutes away. Do you know how much gas costs these days? You are not worth the gas money, Andres. Die fast or heal quick, but do not expect me to sit around holding your hand." I felt like I had been pushed from the scaffolding all over again, the air knocked from my lungs. Before I could respond, I heard shuffling on the line. "Mom says I can talk to you." Jake's teenage voice came through. What he said next destroyed whatever was left of my heart. "We do not miss you. Mom is happier with you gone. We all are." I hung up the phone without another word, unable to process the cruelty. That night, a night nurse named Carla found me struggling to muffle my sobs. "Family troubles?" she asked, gently adjusting my IV. I nodded, unable to speak. "Sometimes the people we count on the most let us down the worst," she said, patting my arm. "But that says more about them than it does about you." When Lucia visited 2 days later, she immediately sensed something was wrong. I finally told her about the phone call. "I'm going over there right now," she said, grabbing her purse fury in her eyes. "No," I caught her wrist. "Please do not. I need to figure this out myself. Just be here for me instead." She reluctantly agreed, but I could see the protective anger simmering beneath her calm exterior. My sister had never particularly liked Melissa, sensing something I had been blind to. Now I wondered how much I had missed over 8 years of marriage. The next 2 weeks in the hospital were a blur of pain medications, physical therapy sessions, and lonely nights staring at the ceiling. The doctors told me I would need at least another month of hospitalization, followed by extensive rehabilitation. My body had been severely traumatized, and pushing too hard too soon could result in permanent disability. But as my physical pain slowly began to subside, my mind grew sharper, more focused on the betrayal that had occurred. Lying in that hospital bed gave me plenty of time to reflect on my marriage, to review memories with fresh eyes. I realized that what I had thought was a partnership had perhaps been a convenient arrangement for Melissa all along. I had been her financial security, nothing more. Late at night, when the hospital quieted and sleep eluded me, I would research on my phone. First, I looked into the legal aspects of my situation. I learned that as the sole owner of our house with only my name on the mortgage and deed, I had more leverage than I initially thought. Melissa had no legal claim to the property itself, though she would be entitled to certain considerations as my spouse. Next, I called my bank from my hospital room. Under the guise of checking my account, after the accident I reviewed recent transactions. What I discovered sent a cold wave of anger through me. Over the past 6 months, Melissa had been systematically transferring money from our joint checking account to a personal account I knew nothing about. Small amounts at first, then increasingly larger sums. The most recent transfer had happened just 2 days after my accident, $5,000, nearly emptying our joint account. "Would you like to dispute these transfers, Mr. Reyes?" the bank representative asked. "Not yet," I replied. "But please flag my account for any future transfers. I need to approve them personally." When I told Lucia what I had discovered, she immediately offered help. "My friend Stephen is a lawyer. He can come to the hospital to meet with you." 2 days later, Stephen arrived with a briefcase and a sympathetic expression. He explained my options, clearly helping me understand how to protect myself legally and financially. "If what you suspect is true," he said, "we should also document her activities. I know a reliable private investigator who can help." The PI, a retired police detective named Marcus, began his work immediately. Within a week, he had compiled a disturbing report. Melissa had indeed been seeing someone else, an ex-boyfriend, from before her first marriage. They had been spotted together multiple times during the very hours she claimed she could not visit me due to work and gas money concerns. There were photos of them entering a hotel, shopping together, and driving in his luxury car with Jake in the back seat, all three laughing. Armed with this information, I formulated a plan. I began pushing myself harder in physical therapy, determined to regain enough strength to execute what needed to be done. "You are making remarkable progress, Mr. Reyes," my physical therapist commented during one grueling session. "But remember, healing cannot be rushed." But I was not just healing my body. I was preparing for battle. With each painful step, Each difficult exercise I grew stronger in my resolve. I worked with Stephen to secure my finances, transferring my remaining funds to new accounts Melissa could not access. I contacted my workplace about the accident, learning that a settlement was likely due to the safety violations that had caused my fall. The private investigator continued monitoring Melissa's activities, providing regular updates. She had not only betrayed me emotionally, but was actively planning a future with her lover, using my resources. They had been seen looking at apartments together with Jake, in tow, apparently complicit in the deception. 3.5 weeks after my admission, I met with my doctors to discuss my progress. While your recovery is going well, we would recommend at least another week of hospital care followed by intensive outpatient rehabilitation, the chief physician advised. I understand your recommendation, I replied carefully, but I need to address urgent personal matters. I am willing to sign a discharge against medical advice. After much discussion and a psychological evaluation, to ensure I was making a competent decision, they reluctantly agreed. I signed the paperwork, accepting full responsibility for my choice. The discharge was set for exactly 1 month after my admission. I coordinated with Lucia, Stephen, Marcus, and 2 trusted friends from work. Everyone had specific roles to play in the plan I had crafted during long hospital nights. I was under no illusions that what I was about to do would save my marriage, nor did I want it to. This was about reclaiming my dignity and securing my future. The night before my discharge, I could barely sleep. Not from pain, though, that was still considerable, but from a mixture of anxiety and determination. By morning, I was ready. I changed into the clothes Lucia had brought me, accepted prescriptions and follow-up instructions from the medical team, and was wheeled to the hospital entrance, where my sister waited with her car. "Are you sure about this?" Lucia asked as she helped me into the passenger seat, my casted leg awkwardly extended. "More sure than I have been about anything in a long time," I answered. The execution of my plan began with precision timing. Marcus had confirmed that Melissa, her boyfriend, and Jake would be at a movie that afternoon, a detail casually mentioned by Jake on social media. We had approximately 3 hours to complete our mission. When Lucia pulled up to my house, a moving truck was already waiting, along with 4 of my construction crew friends who had volunteered to help despite my limited mobility. They had been shocked and angered by how Melissa had abandoned me during my recovery. "The boss is here," Carlos announced as I hobbled up the driveway on crutches. Operation Cleanhouse is a go. Using the keys I had kept, we entered the home I had worked so hard to provide. The familiar smell hit me first, followed by the sound that made my heart leap, Bruno's excited barking. My German shepherd bounded toward me, nearly knocking me over in his enthusiasm. "Hey boy," I whispered, kneeling awkwardly to embrace him, despite the pain it caused my healing ribs. "I missed you too." With Bruno following closely at my side, I directed the systematic emptying of the house. We took everything I had paid for, which was virtually everything: furniture, electronics, appliances, tools. We left the beds and dressers containing Melissa's and Jake's personal belongings, their clothes and personal items. This was not about leaving them with nothing. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. In our bedroom, I discovered a shoebox hidden in Melissa's closet containing love letters from her boyfriend dating back nearly a year, confirming the extent and duration of her betrayal. I also found receipts for purchases I had never seen: designer clothes, expensive jewelry, hotel rooms, all funded by money from our joint account. Money I had earned through sweat and now blood. The process was physically taxing on my still healing body, but the emotional catharsis made the discomfort worthwhile. With each item loaded onto the truck, I felt a weight lifting. Bruno seemed to sense the significance of the moment, staying close and occasionally licking my hand as if offering support. "What about these family photos?" Carlos asked, holding up framed pictures from happier times. I considered them for a moment. "Take the frames. Leave the photos on the counter." 4 hours later, the house stood largely empty, containing only the essentials for Melissa and Jake to continue living temporarily, but stripped of comfort and convenience. Before leaving, I placed an envelope on the kitchen counter, containing formal eviction papers prepared by Stephen, giving them 30 days to vacate the property I solely owned. I took one final look around the hollow space, that had once been my home, then closed and locked the door behind me. Bruno jumped enthusiastically into Lucia's car, settling onto the back seat, as if he knew we were never coming back. That night I slept in a furnished apartment Lucia had arranged for me. My body ached from the day's exertions, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. The furniture from my house was being stored until I could find a permanent place, but Bruno was with me, and that was enough for now. The next morning my phone exploded with notifications. Melissa had returned home to find her life dismantled. She had called, texted, and left voice messages, ranging from confusion to rage to tearful pleading. I listened to none of them. 3 days later, Lucia sent me a video that had been shared among our mutual friends. In it, Melissa stood in front of our empty house, screaming hysterically at a neighbor who was recording the scene. He took everything, everything. Even the dog, she shrieked, mascara streaming down her face. After all I did for him. This is illegal. I am going to sue him for everything he has. The neighbor's calm voice could be heard off camera. From what I understand, it was his house, his stuff. And you did not even visit him once in the hospital after his accident. You do not know anything about our relationship, Melissa snapped. I know enough, the neighbor replied. Everyone does now. The video had gone viral in our community with most comments supporting my actions. Melissa had apparently told people I was only slightly injured and had tried to paint herself as the victim when the truth came out. Few were buying her version of events, especially as details of her affair and financial deception spread. In the 6 months since that day, my life has changed completely. The lawsuit against my former employer for safety violations resulted in a substantial settlement that allowed me to take time for proper recovery without financial stress. I found a smaller house in a new neighborhood, one without painful memories, but with a nice yard for Bruno to enjoy. Surprisingly, Jake reached out to me 3 months after I left. We met at a diner, his choice, where he shamefacedly admitted that his mother had poisoned him against me for years. She always told me you were just using us, he explained, staring at his untouched burger. That you did not really care that you would leave eventually like my real dad did. When you were in the hospital, she said, you were just being dramatic about your injuries for attention. And you believed her, I said. Not a question, just a statement. He nodded miserably. I know now that she was projecting. She was the user, not you. Our relationship remains complicated, but we are rebuilding cautiously. I have offered to help with his college expenses, despite everything, an offer he initially refused, but eventually accepted with tearful gratitude. My physical recovery continues. I walk with a slight limp that may be permanent, and certain movements still cause pain. I cannot return to construction work, but the settlement allowed me to invest in a small property management company where my knowledge of buildings and maintenance proves valuable. Melissa and I are legally separated with divorce proceedings underway. She fought the eviction but lost, eventually moving in with her boyfriend. Though rumors suggest that relationship is already deteriorating now that fantasy has met reality. The hardest lesson I learned through this ordeal is that sometimes those closest to us are capable of the deepest betrayals. But I also learned that my value does not depend on how others treat me. In walking away from a toxic marriage, I reclaimed not just my possessions, but my sense of self-worth. Bruno remains my most loyal companion, his unconditional love, a daily reminder of what genuine devotion looks like. We take walks in the park each morning. My pace slower than before, but my appreciation for simple joys much deeper. Have you ever had to completely rebuild your life after betrayal? Share your story in the comments below. If this journey of reclaiming self-respect resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience. Consider sharing this video with someone who might be staying in a situation where they are undervalued or taken for granted. Thank you for listening. And remember that sometimes walking away is not giving up. It is simply choosing to move forward with dignity. Your worth is never determined by those who fail to see it.